Hey YouTube. Up until now, we've covered cracking WEP and WPA, WPA2 encryption on routers. And so for this video, we're going to take it a little bit step farther. And let's say that a hacker cracks a WEP or WPA, whatever, successfully. They're able to then connect to that network. What else, what other things are possible for them to do? And this is obviously meant to raise your awareness of security and how to recognize certain things. So there are there's some people that don't like these videos, I know, because they think that all I'm doing is showing you guys how to do all the bad stuff, when realistically you could look at it that way, but the other hand will say that I'm raising your awareness and I'm showing you that, hey, don't get WEP encryption, do a WPA or WPA2. Keep your password real strong and crazy, make it really unique. Something that's going to be hard to crack. I mean, just things like that. I think some people, they don't really want to think about this stuff exists, or that they're just going to go on through their lives and whatever. But computers are, I mean, used by people every day. Probably, I'm on the computer every single day, so it's a big part of life, I think. But anyways, so let's go ahead and get into it. All right, so basically what we're going to do today is, excuse me, I'm going to show you a man-in-the-middle attack. And there's several different man-in-the-middle attacks. And basically, just think about it as you're putting your computer in a unique position to where it can intercept traffic from the victim's machine to the router or the access point, and you're able to intercept that information. And that's just one of the ways of doing it. There are several, like I've said, different ways to do this. One of the most effective ones that I have personally seen is a particular way of ARP poisoning, and we're going to get into that in just a second. So before we get into the actual program, we're going to have to edit the configuration file, and let me show you where that configuration file is. On every backtrack will have this program here, which I have on my desktop. Ettercap or Ettercap, I don't care how you say it, but in backtrack 5 is the start menu, backtrack, privilege escalation, sniffers, network sniffers, and then it's right here. There's two of them. One of them is -ng and the other one's -gtk. The ng is if you want to get into a console and do it all by just raw command line type stuff. The interface is more user friendly for those beginners, so I am going to be using the graphical look, and I just dragged it to my desktop. So okay, now that we have that, we're going to go ahead and get to the comp file before we actually open this. And the comp file will be in one of two locations. Backtrack 5, it's going to be in the Dolphin File Manager, and you're going to want to go to your root folder, and it's going to just be straight up in the etc folder. And you're going to scroll down, and here it is right here, etc.conf, right there. And basically I've configured it to open with a text editor. You can actually right click on this, go to open with, and then you can open it. Backtrack 5 comes with kwrite. I also have Kate, so the older versions of Backtrack will have Kate. So you can use either or. Either one of those will work. So let's go ahead and look at that. And if yours is not in that folder, I'll show you where it is in just a second. Until then, the configuration file will still be the same, just the location might be different. So I want you to pay attention. All we're doing is scrolling down to the Linux section. And under the Linux section, there's a thing that says if you use IP tables, okay? And I've already edited this, but before I edited it, all it was just this. It had the little notation symbols, or the little pound symbols, if you will, before these two command lines. And if you watch my videos before, anytime that we look at a comp file, and it has these symbols in there, basically Linux is going to ignore what's there. These are basically just notes. So we want Linux to now recognize this. So the folks that designed Ettercap already did us the favor of putting the code in here. All we have to do is just sort of like unlock it, if you want to think of it like that. So we're going to remove both of those symbols there. And we're going to go to File, and we're going to go to Save. And we're going to close it out. And for those of you that don't have Backtrack 5, where you're going to want to look, if you couldn't find it there, is we're going to go back to the root folder, the USR folder, the local folder, and then the etc folder there. You also have an etc folder there. And this is where it used to be located. I know in Backtrack 3 it was located in here. But you have all these other comp files in here. You even have the Kismet comp file in there. So anyways, it used to be located there, so that's where you would do it. And you would do the same thing, open it with the text editor, that sort of stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and close that out right now. Alright, so one last thing before we actually open up the program. The situation is a hacker maybe connected to a WEP encrypted router, WPA2, whatever, or even maybe an open network. I mean, that's why I'm going to talk about open networks here for just a second. Or, you know, so if you crack the WEP or you crack the WPA2, basically then you're going to connect after that. You're going to take that WEP key, the web key, or you're going to take the passphrase, whatever, and then you successfully connect and you obtain an IP address. So if we look at my network manager, I am connected to the network, and it shows my IP address 192 blah 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 blah. But I am connected. I can surf the net and all that sort of thing. So okay, for those of you who like to connect to an open network, meaning a non-secure network that's not encrypted with WEP or WPA2 or WPA, any of that, that's really dangerous. And I'm not saying, I mean, for one, I mean, like if you're stealing your neighbor's internet or something, okay, that's illegal in the first place. But for those of you, I'm just saying, because you know, a lot of times when people see those open connections, you know, they connect to it, and there's quite a few people at times that are probably connected to it at one time. So this can be really dangerous. You know, on one hand, the person says, cool, I can connect for free and I can go check my mail and all that stuff. Because when you get on the internet, what do? You want to check your mail, you want to go to your bank, you want to do, you know, stuff like that. And if you're going on an open connection, I'm just saying, you're about to see it's going to be really dangerous. So just please take that as a warning, as a security awareness thing. I know that some of you are going to connect to those open networks, but it's just really not smart. It can ruin your life. So anyways, I'm going to go ahead and open up Ettercap. And the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to go to Sniff, and we're going to go to Unbridged Sniffing. And you're going to select your interface. Mine is WLAN 0. Yours may be something else. Use your interface, just like you would use if we were doing like an arrow dump or something like that. Say okay, it's going to load the plugins and all that stuff available. It show you down here. Go to hosts, and always, whenever you use Ettercap, no matter if you're using this attack or any other attack, you always scan for the hosts. So let's scan for those hosts. And it says 3 hosts have been added to the host list. And if you want, you could go to host and then click on host list. Now it displays the other IPs that are on the same network as I'm connected to. And then here's where it could get a little complicated, but let me explain. I'm going to keep it really as simple as I can. I know that this one right here, the 1.1, this is the access point, the router, okay? And the 1.2 is the victim's machine. This is another machine that I have right next to me, and that's the IP address to that machine. And if you look before at my IP, mine is the 168.1.4. So you should not see your own IP address here. If I did not connect to a network, if I was disconnected and I scanned for hosts, then it might show you yourself or something. I don't know. I've seen some weird things before. But anyways, just make sure you're connected to the network. How do you tell which one is an access point or the router and which ones are computers and all that other sort of thing? We will get into that later, okay? But most of you, if you do not know, we're not going to specify the targets. Originally, I could click here and go add to target 1. I could come to this one and then add to target 2. So basically, we have the access point as a target and we have the victim machine as a target. And so any conversation that 1.1 and 1.2 has, we'll be able to listen in on that and intercept what's being said, basically, is a practical way of kind of explaining it. And hence that's why it's called a man-in-the-middle attack, because we have inserted ourselves in the middle and we are receiving and intercepting this traffic. So here we go. Well, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go to man-in-the-middle, MITM, and we're going to select ARP poisoning. Sniff remote connections and say OK. We can talk about this other thing later if you want. And down here it will say that it's basically going to sniff all, or it's going to poison all hosts in the list. And I'm going to go to start and then start sniffing. Now the sniffing has begun. I can, to see if my ARP poisoning was successful, I'm going to go to my plugins, manage the plugins, and you can do a check poison if you want. So I'll double click on that, and down here it tells me poisoning process successful. It is possible that it will not work. It's possible that, or it'll say no poisoning between specific things or whatever. So this is just a way to check to make sure that it was successful. So okay, I'm going to explain what is going to happen when and how this whole thing is going to work. Okay, so now basically what's going to happen is we've done something a little bit more advanced, but it's still very simple to do as you've been following along. Some people that don't edit the comp file and they just come in here and they try to do the ARP poisoning and they start sniffing, a lot of times they don't get the results that they need or that they were hoping for. And so by editing that comp file that we did earlier, basically what's going to happen is we have created a fake security certificate, but it's based off of a real certificate. So when the victim attempts to connect to any kind of log, like secure site, whether it's the bank, Hotmail, Gmail, Yahoo, whatever, any one of those logins, you'll notice on the top of a web page, it'll say like HTTP and then the website. Well, most of them will say HTTPS for when you want to log in. And the S basically stands for secure. And that's their way of trying to encrypt the information going back and forth so that you can successfully log in. And the reason that it's encrypted is because they obviously don't want that information being collected or going unencrypted so that it could be easily seen. And we have a number of packet, not packet sniffers, but packet sniffers like Wireshark, and several other sniffers that we have that can pick up that information and we can read it without any encryption. Well, all the ones that are HTTPS, which is most things in the world now, because people are trying to protect their customers, it's going to be encrypted so that when we look at Wireshark or another sniffer, it's all encrypted and we're not going to be able to read that. Well, this is a way to kind of get around that. So we've created a fake security certificate, and if any of you have ever been on the internet and you try to go to a website and it tells you that there's like a problem with the website certificate or something like that, it happens, and it doesn't mean that there's a hacker on the other end. Sometimes there's just very common issues that can be resolved. For example, I've seen one time the system clock was wrong, and so it caused the website or the computer to think that there was a problem with the certificate or that it was expired or whatever. So there's common issues with that, and most people have seen that sort of thing before. So that's basically what's going to happen. But anyways, let's get on with it. I have my victim machine that's right next to me here, and I'm going to go ahead and attempt to log into Hotmail right now. So I'm going to go ahead and type in just a fake ID and a fake password. Keep in mind, if it was an actual person trying to log in, there's no reason that they would be putting in fake information. So this is just for demonstration purposes. And so I'm going to click sign in, and we're going to see what happens. Okay, and as you can see on here, it took just a second. Username, myhotmail@hotmail.com, password hot, and then the info. So it tells you where it's going to, which is login.live.com, which is Hotmail. So let's go ahead and attempt to do a I don't know. Let's go to we'll try like a Netflix. A lot of people have Netflix these days, so let's see what happens when we do Netflix. All right, cool. So from the Netflix server, we can see the username netflixtest@hotmail.com, which is, obviously fake. Nettest123 is a password, and then it tells you where it's coming from. Signup.netflix.com. So that just kind of shows you that if we look back up here, once again, it'll show you the username, password, and where it's trying to log into. Now, you can I sometimes I could do it 2 times, 3 times, but eventually what I find that I have to eventually do is I have to stop the man-in-the-middle attack, and so let it re-arp the computers, restore those machines, and then sometimes I have to start over. What I found sometimes is that if the victim keeps going to different websites and they keep trying to log in to different things, they can start having issues with their internet connection and that sort of thing. Also, it's possible that the router itself could have some kind of like an ARP watcher or something like that, to where it will eventually detect this and prevent it from working. So again, you may have to stop your attack and let it re-arp, and then you can try to do it again. So anyways, that just kind of gives you a basic idea of how this works, and it's all, basically, it just shows you what can happen, and you can imagine that if I was on an open network and there was like, a few people connected to that, I would just be collecting this information like nothing, because pretty much all I gotta do is just let it sit there. But make sure that you go to your man-in-the-middle, stop your man-in-the-middle attack. It's going to stop. It says re-arping the victims, so that's fine. And I'm going to stop my sniffing. So I'm going to go ahead and close this out. And I hope you guys learned something. Quite lengthy, but should be pretty educational for you. And that's just one way to do it. There is more stuff I'll be covering, so I will see you guys later. Thanks for all the latest subscribers and all the views and stuff. Pretty cool. I appreciate it. Thanks, guys. And just send me an email if you need to, or a message.